A U.S. federal appeals court just dropped a bombshell on one of President Trump's signature economic policies, ruling his global tariffs are actually unlawful. And just like that, the stage is set for a historic showdown over the limits of presidential power. We're talking billions of dollars and the future of global trade hanging in the balance. This is way more than just a policy squabble. It's a fight that could literally redefine the power of the American presidency.
And President Trump's reaction? It was immediate and, well, intense. He jumped on his Truth Social platform and did not hold back, framing this ruling as a potential catastrophe for the entire country. When you hear that kind of language, an existential threat, it tells you just how deep this battle over presidential authority really goes. So you've got to be asking, how did a simple policy on import taxes blow up into a full-blown constitutional crisis? Well, it all goes back to the pretty unconventional way these tariffs were created in the first place. To really get what the court is saying, we have to rewind a bit and look at how these tariffs even came to be. See, this wasn't your standard bill passed by Congress. No, this was a power play, and it all hinged on a controversial and, honestly, a kind of obscure legal tool. Okay, so at the absolute heart of this whole thing is a 1977 law called the IEEPA. Now, traditionally, you can think of this thing as a surgeon's scalpel, not a sledgehammer. It was designed for very specific, targeted actions, like imposing sanctions on a hostile nation or freezing the assets of terrorists, not for putting a blanket tax on pretty much all global trade. So here was the strategy. The administration declared national emergencies, but not for war or terrorism. They did it for two things: ongoing trade deficits and the flow of illegal drugs like fentanyl. By calling these emergencies, the president argued he had the authority under that IEEPA law to slap these so-called reciprocal tariffs on almost everyone. It was a totally new legal move, turning economic and public health issues into national emergencies to unlock massive economic power. But the Federal Appeals Court, they saw this completely differently. In their ruling, they used this incredibly powerful word to describe the president's actions: unbounded. When a court says that, it's a huge deal. So let's dig into why they said it. And here's where the two sides clash. The administration's argument was, hey, the law says we can regulate importation, and that's broad enough to include tariffs. But the court hit the pause button and went straight back to the Constitution, pointing out that the power to tax belongs to Congress. Their whole point was that a power this huge can't just be implied. It has to be spelled out, explicitly given. And really, the court's opinion boils down to this one simple idea. Congress has always been super specific when it hands out the power to create tariffs. So the judges basically said it's just really hard to believe that Congress would quietly tuck away an unlimited power to tax inside a law that was meant for sanctions. And this is exactly why this isn't some minor legal argument happening in a vacuum. We're talking about tariffs that affect goods coming from nearly every single U.S. trading partner. The enormous global scale of this policy is precisely why the court got so concerned about one person having that much economic control. Now, let's step away from the constitutional law for a second, because this legal fight has very real, very tangible consequences, and we can measure them in billions of dollars. I mean, just look at this number. By July, the U.S. Treasury had collected $159 billion from these tariffs. That is a mountain of cash that is now, legally speaking, just sitting in limbo. As you can imagine, the Justice Department came out swinging. They painted a really grim picture, warning that if these tariffs are ultimately thrown out, having to refund all that money could lead to financial ruin for the U.S. Treasury. But, for the businesses that are actually caught in the crossfire, the biggest issue isn't just the cost, it's the crippling uncertainty. It's this constant whiplash effect. I mean, how are you supposed to manage a global supply chain or make billion-dollar investments when the basic rules of trade can be flipped on their head and then flipped back again with no warning? So what you end up with is this tangle of conflicting priorities. You've got the administration focused on its goals of national security. You have U.S. businesses just desperately trying to navigate the chaos. And then you have America's trading partners who feel forced to hit back with their own tariffs, which just creates more tension for everyone. So with all of that on the line, where do we go from here? Well, this story is far, far from over. In fact, it's heading straight for a final winner-take-all confrontation. Okay, so the clock is officially ticking. The court made its ruling back on August 29th, but they immediately hit pause on it. They stayed it until October 14th. That gives the administration a crucial window of time to appeal to the Supreme Court, which they've already said they're going to do. And that is what sets the stage for a massive, landmark showdown. Now, here's a really important clarification. This ruling does not kill all of Trump's tariffs. Not at all. It is laser-focused on the ones created using that IEEPA emergency law. Other big tariffs, like the ones on steel and aluminum, were made using a totally different law and are not affected by this decision. So when you strip everything else away, it all comes down to one monumental question for the Supreme Court. Who really holds the economic levers of power in the United States? Is it the president, acting through emergency authority? Or is it Congress, the body the Constitution explicitly gave that power to? The answer they give is going to echo for generations.